All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody is having a fabulous Friday. And welcome to today's webinar, where we will explain how FAAS Consulting's new audit and assessment solution can maximize the return on investment of industry audits. I'm Kim Cassow, and I've had the pleasure of serving on both board of directors of FACT and NMDP, and have been a subject matter expert on behalf of FACT's leadership team to develop an assessment solution that is of high value to those we serve in the cell and gene therapy world. We want to thank everybody for joining us today. We truly think we have a great agenda, and we will explain the value of the audit and assessment solution from a variety of perspectives. There is a mix of stakeholders in our audience today, which we are thrilled about, and we acknowledge that everybody has a different level of familiarity regarding the industry audits of cell and gene therapy sites. We will get into the specific details of our solution, but because some may actually not know the history of the problem, we want to briefly discuss it. And as we get going, one piece of housekeeping, we will have a Q&A session at the end. So please write your question or questions into the chat box. So at my own institution in Chapel Hill, I serve multiple roles, including being the Associate Director of Quality Initiatives. So what does that mean? Well, I get to act as the liaison between the clinical program and our apheresis and processing facilities at my institution. I also get to be the authorized representative for all of our commercial CAR T-cell products, and I've been involved in the onboarding of our CAR T-cell products, our tumor infiltrating lymphocytes or TILs, and our gene therapy products. So I personally have felt the burden of multiple audits within 1 year. As I'm at an academic institution, I have to report on my activities within an academic year. So for me, that is July through June of the following year. And this is the audits that I had to personally be involved in within one academic year. In August, I had Company A and Company B, both with REMS audits in August. In October, then I had Company C with an apheresis audit. Turn that around, and then I had Company D having another apheresis audit in March, followed by Company E having a REMS audit in April. Then I also had Company E again have an apheresis audit in June. Later then in June, we then had a subgroup of Company C having a site qualification. So you can tell that there were multiple audits all within one academic year, and that is 7. And this does not even include any of our FACT annual submissions or our other regulatory bodies that inspect both our apheresis and our processing facilities. So I personally have truly felt the burden of multiple audits. So we also recognize the fact that there are short-term pains and long-term risk. For our healthcare institutions, some of these pains happen to be duplicative audits, as we just saw, allocation of resources away from patient care and product handling, conflicting required responses to deficiencies, and sufficient workforce demands. It takes personnel time to actually do these audits. Then for our industry partners, this can be a costly process. It is the reinvention of an auditing process by each company, the inability of sites to actually onboard new products for these industries, and then the workforce demands and shortages. And so audit processes depend on a manufacturer's interpretation of regulatory requirements and their risk tolerance. They may propose site qualification and surveillance approach to the regulatory agency, which then they in turn will want to see that the approach actually conforms to compliance with applicable regulation. The result of this siloed approach is that many sites will be audited by multiple manufacturers, and each audit is specific to a cellular therapy product. Some manufacturers actually conduct separate audits for different products, and even some further stratify product-specific audits into different research as well as the commercial product. So you may be audited several times by the same company, but because you're having a different product. Because the audits are actually developed by individual companies and based on the same regulations, many audit elements are duplicative across the companies, products, and accreditation. So there is really a real risk that patients will continue to suffer despite effective therapies being available because of the long-term potential for insufficient facilities and qualified workforce of both the healthcare institutions and industry to provide adequate patient access to quality cellular therapy. And so we do need more facilities. Here, we've seen that FACT accreditation of the IECs or the immune effector cells has led to additional capabilities of existing transplant programs. However, it is time to turn to a new need that has emerged. We no longer just need more capacity at existing facilities, but really we need more facilities. This picture of Kendrick Cromer, who is a 12-year-old boy from the DC area that was recently featured in the New York Times, is the first recipient of a commercial product for sickle cell disease. His story really illustrates that access to products is more than just having enough products and getting them approved by insurance. The commitment required to receive these cell therapies includes several preparatory activities, including the potential for multiple cell collections and long stays at the hospital, or actually needing to stay nearby post infusion for close monitoring. When patients are far from home, this incurs many costs to the patient and their family, including travel, accommodation, and caregiving for other family members. These families also have jobs. So, really, location does matter. The ISCT president recently stated that the squisher aspects of CGT, or cell and gene therapy deployment, involves patient social determinants of health and healthcare system clinical care bandwidth and financial risk, which explains in the most part the emerging reality of CGT deserts arising in the first world healthcare systems. These deserts are opportunity areas to establish new sites. In fact, audit and assessment services can expedite the qualification process for these new institutions. So, as we look at FACT standards and the accreditation program that we have for our immune effector cells, these were built rapidly to meet the immediate needs in cell therapy, and we're expecting that the number of accredited programs to grow. However, with the incredible success of cellular therapy and additional indications, it really has become obvious rather quickly that there are many other challenges that must be solved to overcome barriers to patient safety and access. These challenges have been many, and some examples also are included on this slide. Several stakeholder groups have emerged that have brought together industry, healthcare providers, scientists, data registries, coding and technology companies, and so many more. The most challenges require the participation of all of these stakeholders to solve. Some solutions have been to leverage existing processes, and other solutions require creation of new standards and thinking outside the box. From these multiple stakeholder groups, several organizations have responded to implement these solutions, and there are several stories of success. For FACT's part, as we've mentioned before, we've developed standards and accreditation for immune effector cells. And now we are planning to provide assessment services as a natural extension of our core capabilities. And you see here towards the bottom of the slide where we've had three groups of Deloitte, ASCT, and NMDP that have been trying to address the challenge of site certification, standardization of REMS, and industry audits. So one of the solutions actually identified was to turn to FACT consulting, and the solution being implemented happens to be what we are talking about today, and that is the audit and assessment solution. And FAAS, as we like to officially call it, does have a mission and goals. And that includes to optimize patient care and access to cellular therapy by providing an unbiased and unified auditing system applicable to quality, operation, and regulatory requirements of any stakeholder. We hope to reduce the audit and qualification burden on sites and industry and still be compliant with federal regulations, and to serve both not only FACT accredited sites, but also non-FACT accredited sites, and to improve the efficiency of the cellular therapy field to increase patient access, and of course, to perform audits that provide additional value to both the programs and the industry. FAAS has performed pilot assessments, and what we have learned is that our pilot assessments have demonstrated that our solution can improve quantitative and qualitative return on investment, thus achieving a tangible and intangible benefits. And with that, I would love to turn it over to our manager of the Fact Audit and Assessment Solution, Liz Ferraro. Liz, turning it over to you, ma'am.
Thanks, Kim. Here I am. Hi. Hi, everybody. My name is Liz Ferraro. I work under FAAS Consulting. I'm focused on the audit and assessment solution that we're going to talk about today. And so before we kind of get into our discussion, we have a short video that we're going to show you that hopefully will explain a lot of the key details and points about the service. So once the video's over, then I'll come back and then we'll continue with the webinar.
Introducing Fact Audit and Assessment Services, provided by FAAS Consulting. This service performs assessments on behalf of industry, reduces duplicative audits at healthcare sites, and increases patient access to cellular therapies. It's a win-win-win solution that allows industry and sites to serve more patients. Fact Audit and Assessments serves many parties both directly and indirectly. Companies can rapidly qualify sites, onboard products at more sites, create goodwill with site networks, and achieve cost savings. Healthcare sites are assessed by a single trusted entity and receive valuable guidance. The result is quality cellular therapy available to more patients at more sites. With Fact Audit and Assessment Services tailored solutions, you can maximize your resources to get more products to more patients. Say goodbye to inefficient use of time, workforce, and financial resources, unclear, varying, and overlapping expectations and requirements, repetitive demonstrations of a quality management system and technical capabilities, and especially allocation of resources away from patient care and product handling. The results of using audit and assessment services are leveraged reports for fewer audits, accelerated site qualification, and increased access to cellular therapy. Fact Audit and Assessment Services provides a balanced approach. We provide standardized checklists that enable multiple clients to benefit from a single assessment and streamline the process for sites, while designing audit and assessment programs tailored to your specific needs, whether it's scope, geography, frequency, or the number of sites. Fact Audit and Assessment Services can perform site qualifications, technical assessments, surveillance audits, and ad hoc audits. Criteria for the assessments are based on GXP and manufacturer-specific requirements. For example, site qualification assessments in the U.S. are based on FDA regulations for good tissue practices and good manufacturing practices as applicable. The audit and assessment process includes the following steps. First, the company submits a needs assessment inquiry. Next, audit services and the company collaborate to design a customized assessment program. Then audit services performs the assessments and submits the deliverables to the appropriate parties. Finally, audit services adds the assessment report to the audit library, making it available to future clients. Audit and assessment services will conduct the evaluation, develop the audit observations plan, review and determine the acceptability of responses, and conclude the audit. Upon completion of the assessments, the client will receive a comprehensive audit report, while the site will be issued an audit closure letter. The final audit report is then added to the audit library and available for future use. This report will reflect site information and results of the assessment without identifying any client or its proprietary information. Request audits today. Visit www.factglobal.org/factconsulting to learn more about Fact Audit and Assessment Services and submit a needs assessment inquiry to get started. You can also scan the QR code. Let the experts at FAAS Consulting personalize a solution for you.
Okay. All right. Let me scroll through. Perfect. Okay, so, nice to see everybody again. So hopefully the video just gave you an overview of the audit and assessment solution that we're going to talk about today. But so by now you know what the solution is, but I do want to talk a minute about what it's not. This is an assessment to regulations and any product-specific requirements that a client might request of us. So it's not an inspection to the standards. And the reason that I just want to make this clear is because we have received some feedback that the assessment is, it's very rigorous and it's kind of focused a little bit more on some areas like equipment qualification and validations. And those are highly regulated processes under the FDA. So it may seem like we do a bit more of a deep dive with those things. We can assess both FACT accredited and non-FACT accredited sites. And there is a firewall between FACT consulting and accreditation services. So if you're a FACT accredited site or you're seeking FACT accreditation either now or in the future, if we come to assess your site with the audit and assessment solution, it's 2 regulations, and the accreditation services division will have no knowledge that we were there. Oh, there we go. Okay, so those of you that are familiar with FACT already know that we're a trusted brand. Those of you that are not familiar with FACT, just to let you know that FACT has been making cellular therapy safe, effective, and accessible since 1995. Our audit and assessment solution actually falls under the FACT consulting umbrella. And so this allows us to kind of customize our assessment processes and our auditor approaches, and really gives us greater supervision over how we can service our customers. So how does it work? And I think that you saw this in the video, but a company would submit a needs assessment form. That's located on our FACT consulting website, and I think we talk about that a little bit later on. We'll have a conversation with the company. We'll figure out exactly what their needs are and how we can help them. We're going to perform the assessment, submit the deliverables, and then we're also going to make that audit report available in a library where other manufacturers that want to qualify the same site can simply leverage the report, and then that reduces the on-site burden for the sites, the on-site audit burden, and then it also reduces the burden on the manufacturers to have to send auditors on site. We have extensive capabilities. We can perform quality systems assessments, site qualification assessments, surveillance and monitoring assessments on a periodic basis, any ad hoc or for cause or any special circumstance assessment. We're able to fully capable and able to provide that solution. So the key features of our solution, we use a checklist for the assessment based on whatever applicable regulations are in the geographic area that the site is being qualified. We're able to help sites formulate corrective action plans immediately to resolve observations. So we can even help provide guidance on the observations that we see before we even leave the audit. We're going to generate a comprehensive audit report that can be provided to any manufacturer. And we also trend observations that we see and provide that information to both clients and sites to help them really focus on those areas that commonly need improvement. And so, for example, we completed an assessment a few weeks ago, and we provided a checklist to the site that had the areas where there's common FDA citations. And so they found like that was very helpful because they could focus on those areas and really make sure that they are doing everything they can to be compliant. We're an affordable alternative to hiring contract auditors, and being under FACT consulting, really allows this to be an end-to-end solution with the expertise and resources we have for any new program startup, audits and assessments, and any ongoing inspection readiness. So the value to industry includes tangible and intangible benefits. So the tangible benefits is that it's a standardized approach to assess these FDA regulated processes at site to assess their capabilities. So, including environmental control, validation, qualification, documentation, et cetera. It's cost effective, and it alleviates the burden on the manufacturers to use their resources to go and perform these on-site assessments. And then it's also a shorter time to qualification because we can provide guidance in a quick manner. It's consistent, and we are providing these reports that we can leverage to other manufacturers. And just to give you an example, again, shorter time to site qualification, the assessment that we did a couple weeks ago, we actually were surprised that a manufacturer's representative was there, and she, based on the audit, based on what she saw, she actually qualified the site. She told them they were immediately qualified. So they were very happy about that. So that was very fast site qualification process. The intangible benefits is that we provide, experienced auditors. We can assess sites that are FACT accredited and non-accredited, and we promote goodwill between the sites and the manufacturers. I think I look at it more of like a partnership that we have between the sites and manufacturers, and we continuously want to improve the goodwill. So the value to the sites, again, we have tangible and intangible benefits. It's efficient and effective process, and if we can leverage the reports once we come on site and do a full assessment, then that allows the staff at the sites to dedicate more time to patient care instead of doing these duplicative and multiple audits. The intangible benefits, it's less stressful. We do a full preparation with the site. They have the checklist in advance. They know everything that we're going to request. We request it in advance. And so really we become very familiar with the people that we're going to be auditing before we even get on site. And so it helps to make the day much less stressful, much more collaborative. And I like to tell sites that we're doing this with them and not to them. And I think that that's appreciated and welcomed. And I've seen really good results with that approach. And, we can provide the guidance to improve and address the observations. And then our assessment also helps sites prepare for any other accreditation or regulatory audits that they may have in the future. So some of the challenges about leveraging the report were kind of brought to our attention. So with the sites, sometimes their legal departments are reluctant to allow that report to be shared because there's concerns about confidentiality or liability or compliance issues. And for industry, some of the challenges are like when they communicate with the FDA about how they're going to perform these site qualifications, if they don't specifically say that they may leverage these reports, there could be some challenges when they're trying to purchase a report of a site that's already been qualified if they haven't already discussed that with the FDA. So we really want to develop a partnership to help alleviate some of these challenges. And so for the sites, if we're interacting with the sites, we would maybe proactively try to communicate with their legal department, really try to alleviate their fears about what the report contains. We've implemented some safeguards where we have eligibility requirements for anyone that wants to purchase a report. None of the proprietary client information will appear on the report. So they won't know who the manufacturer was that hired us or any proprietary product specific things for that manufacturer. It's simply an assessment of the site that we've been to. So, we do want to try to work with the sites and industry to alleviate some of these challenges if these are going to be barriers to be able to leverage these reports and then reduce the audit burden. So how can industry get started? You can complete a needs assessment form at our FAAS Consulting website. There's no obligation. Really, all this does is triggers a conversation between you and us. And we talk about what your needs are, and we try to see how we can help you. On that same FAAS Consulting website, we also have newsletter articles, and the video that you just saw is also on our FAAS Consulting website. So if there's any key opinion leaders or anyone else at your organization that you would like to kind of give them some information about this, you can share those references with them. And then we fully expect that manufacturers are going to want to qualify us as a service provider, as a supplier, because the FDA does require that, and we've already been qualified by several suppliers. So we welcome that, we expect that, and so we're available for for a supplier qualification audit if necessary. And then at the end of this webinar, we're going to have an open Q&A session. But if your question doesn't get answered during that time, or you think of a question after this webinar, you can always just email FAAS Consulting, and we'll be happy to answer your question, get the answer to you as quickly as we can. How can sites promote the FAAS audit and assessment solution? So the same resources that are on our FAAS Consulting website, if you want to share those with your key opinion leaders, the newsletter articles and the video that you saw. And then again, if you have questions that either don't get answered today, although I do believe we are going to have an FAQ sent out to everybody who attended, you feel free to email FAAS Consulting with your question, and I promise you we will definitely answer it. So when we were thinking about developing this audit assessment solution, the foundation was created, and that's, the documentation and the SOPs and the checklists and all the regulatory stuff. But we wanted to make sure that, does our process work? What we're thinking of doing, how can we test it out? And so we approached 3 different manufacturers who wanted to each qualify a site, and they were really generous and allowed us to perform the site qualification on their behalf. Those manufacturers did accompany us to on the assessment, and overall we got very positive feedback, really a lot of comments about how thorough our preparation was and the expertise of the audit team. And so this is very good information from both the site and the manufacturer point of view. So we're so excited, and I'm so really grateful that we do have a site representative and a manufacturer representative who participate in the pilot assessment, that we're going to have like a direct question session. So we have Diane Bullock. She's the quality manager at the stem cell transplant and cellular therapy program, University of Rochester Medical Center, Strong Memorial Hospital, as the site representative. We have Nick Zarides. He's the head of quality and compliance for North America at Johnson & Johnson. And so we have Dr. Cassow and Sean Phillips, who's an auditor under FAAS Consulting, that are going to just kind of ask them some direct questions related to their experience. And then after that, we're going to have the open Q&A for any other questions. So I really appreciate you letting me present this, and I'm going to turn it back over now to Kim and Sean.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Liz. That was great. And hopefully everybody is thinking about their questions that they want to ask in a little bit when we get to the end point of our question and answer. But in the meantime, we're going to turn over to Sean and I asking Nick and Diane some questions about their experiences as they both were part of the pilot assessment. And so I want to thank everybody for being here. Really appreciate it, Diane and Nick, for you both being here to answer questions from both Sean and I. So I'm going to get started if that's okay with everybody. Let's have some conversations. All right. So this is the first question that I'm going to actually pose to both of you. And basically, what did you learn by participating in the audit pilot? Diane, do you want to go first, ma'am?
Sure. I learned that this really wasn't, drastically different from any other, manufacturer audit or registry audit that we've had in recent years. I found that it was a great learning opportunity. We learned a lot from the audit team. So we got a lot of valuable information from them, but it really wasn't, drastically different from other audits.
So you had no surprises that were happening?
No surprises.
Which is always nice. Nick, what about you?
So very good question. First, I need to say that, again, in this capacity, in this conversation today, I'm really expressing my views and perspectives of more than 35 years in the industry, not necessarily J&J's, because I know this is being reported. So from a legal perspective, I just want to make that abundantly clear. That's the only thing my request was for today from the company. But again, it was to echo Diane's comments as well. The experience we got, because we did spend the whole day at Strong, it was they didn't do many. There was nothing different executed from what we saw from from Liz and her team versus what we would do. So we actually conducted the audit jointly, and at the end, it was a very end-to-end audit, and it was no different than what we would have done. Matter of fact, I can make the argument it was actually more in depth, only because our process only covers maybe 75% of what the audit actually covered, but because they wanted to make it end-to-end to make sure it fulfills the needs, of other manufacturers, maybe they go further along in the process and use the facilities for other things, that it actually did cover, end-to-end from apheresis, storage, and, cryopreservation if facilities use those kind of services. So yeah, I would say I was very pleased at how in-depth and the audit went into.
Which is great to hear. And so, Nick, actually with the pilot assessment, with that being performed, was there any part that didn't help you to fulfill your obligation for this audit, or are there other things that could have helped to fulfill your audit obligation?
No, actually, it did not. Actually, it fulfilled everything we had. It was pre-audit. It actually followed a lot of the process we already had in place. Like I said, I've been working in the industry in major pharmaceutical for over 35 years, and obviously, we have a pretty sophisticated quality systems. I would say that the processes that were followed by Liz and her team was no different than what we did. They had audit plans, so obviously they told the site ahead of time, according to what 1271 FAAS 1271 standards they were going to be held accountable to. So they already knew ahead of time. Then we obviously went into the site. It was an entire day audit. I think we started at 9. We ended a little close to 5 o'clock. And it was conducted like you would conduct any specific audit opening meeting. We had our audit, and then we had a closing meeting at the end where it was a back and forth conversation about opportunities that we could have done differently, or possible opportunities to improve, or observations, whatever you want to call them. Obviously we call them observations from a J&J perspective. I know that we call them something different from fact, but again, we aligned on what those were, and then we presented that to the site, and obviously they proceeded with our processes, replying to us with X amount of time out of. I guess that can vary from company to company, but they responded to our concerns. We cataloged them into our systems. So again, it's not a totally hands-off system. It's just the export part where you actually conduct the audit, go to site, because a lot of the feedback that we got from our customers was, over the last couple of years, I can see 3 or 4 years now, is, when we go to a site, we ask the same questions. As Diane said, is every site basically says, we have, 6-7 of these a year. Every manufacturer comes in, they ask the exact same questions for the most part. We get, so therefore there was, from their perspective, it was just a repeat over and over and over again. So again, we took that to heart, and obviously, how can we help you guys? And all the feedback was back from the sites, if you guys could actually, combine an audit through some kind of service and share it across, multiple organizations, that would really alleviate a lot of the pressures because it is a full-time, you know, not a full-time
Mhm.
job, but it takes up 3 or 4 people's full-time for that one day. And I'm assuming there's also prep time that goes into it. There's actually now time to, you know, to answer the observations and communication back and forth with the site. So it is a pretty lengthy process that we're trying to streamline for the site and only do it once.
Which, being on that other end of it, as being that person who is audited, I appreciate this work trying to streamline, because yes, it's the same questions and we all are going, can we please combine? So thank you, Nick. All right, Sean, I'm going to turn it over to you, sir.
All right. Hi, Nick and Diane. Thank you guys for taking the time to be with us today. We really appreciate it. My first question is for Diane. I understand that you were involved with the pilot assessment as well. What would you say is the value for your organization from the pilot assessment?
Being part of a pilot, any pilot is always fun. I like to have the opportunity for feedback, you know, to try to improve the process. So, you know, you get to voice your opinions and potentially, you know, they can incorporate your suggestions. So hopefully making the whole process better. So, I thought the pilot was very valuable. I like to have the preview of what I may encounter in the future. You know, you might be able to get things done early. You know, our audit now applies to other manufacturers. You know, I've got a little time saved. So it was very valuable being part of the audit, the pilot.
Great, thank you. And my next question is for both of you. How would you rate the overall experience of working with the audit team? And I will ask Nick to go first.
Again, for me, it was a great experience. Like I said, I've known Liz now. It's like I said, for a couple of years, we've been trying to get this program going. So it was very exciting to see actually have that pilot. For us, we're calling it a pilot. For me, it was a pseudo pilot because we actually used that as the backbone for our audit. So for us, it was used as the actual audit for the site, which is part of our, you know, SOP requirements for site certification. So like I said, it was a great experience. I think you guys did a great job. And again, I would definitely like to see, you know, be used more widely, because I think it would be help the industry. And to Diane's point, we're really here to treat the patients more and just keep on doing this paperwork, you know, and the things we have to do, obviously, from a compliance standpoint, but there are some things you can outsource and pull it all together into one organization and not repeat it, you know, 5, 6, 7 times.
Great. And Diane?
Yeah, I rate it 5 stars. Everything was well organized. The audit staff were very friendly, extremely thorough, very knowledgeable, and responsive to, you know, everything we needed. It
That's
was
awesome to hear.
very smooth.
Good, I'm glad.
It's almost like, can we ask for that Yelp review, right?
Yeah.
Great, 5 stars.
There we go.
Yeah.
I concur.
So let me ask both of you another question though. What aspects of FAAS of our service would you say actually exceeded your expectations?
I was impressed by the thoroughness. You know, as we've said a few times, the audit process can be repetitive. I had 4 audits in 2023. This was one of them. And they all covered very similar aspects, similar records being pulled, but this one was the most thorough. It was a deeper dive into everything, and it just yielded much more usable, you know, results on our end. And it's a nice confirmation that what we are doing, you know, we're doing right. But I was most impressed with the thoroughness.
And I would have to concur without repeating everything, but yes, it was, like I said, it was from beginning to end, audit plans, execution, follow-ups. You know, it was exactly what I would have expected. I was actually surprised, pleasantly surprised.
That is awesome. And that is really good feedback as well, because I do think there is something to be said about being very thorough and making sure that we are doing what we are supposed to be doing and following regulations. Nick, next question actually is for you is, how do you determine the frequency of audits for a collection facility?
Interesting question. I don't want to give away too many company secrets, but no, again, it's pretty much known industry standard. So again, from our perspective, obviously the manufacturing process is, you know, GMP. This, you know, starting material at this level is technically non-GMP material. It's not like a regular raw material. You can't validate the process for collection because the material coming out of every patient is dependent on so many different variables. So from our company's perspective, this this activity at this, for the starting material is considered a very low risk activity. So from that perspective, again, it's low risk. I think it's going which direction was the question again? Before I get derailed and I'll go in a different direction.
Just as far as the frequency of the audits.
All right, so
you know,
yes,
as
so
a
I just wanted to
collections
say, thank
facility.
you. I just wanted, it's, I'm getting old, so it is an age thing. So I just wanted to set the baseline, you know, our frequencies are based on our criticality level. The criticality level for starting raw material is relatively low. So it was currently, you know, 3 years, we're probably going to extend that out to even farther, you know, from a risk assessment approach. So again, it's not every year, but again, it's our issue is also the volume of sites. So, you know, well, you know, if we started with 20 sites, you know, 5 years ago, then we went to 50 sites and 100 sites. Well, the exponential growth over the next few years could double and triple that. So, so even though the frequency may be going up as we're increasing the number of sites, it actually stays constant to what it was 5 years ago. Because if you were going, you know, to only 20 sites every 3 years, but now you have 200 sites, just throwing a random number out there, and it's every 5 years, you actually need more auditors. It's actually, even if the fact that you extended it from 3 years to 5 years, or I don't think we can go beyond that, but just from the mere volume of sites, the workload just gets, you know, gets to the point where, you know, you're constantly going every year going to your leadership and asking for more headcounts just to do audits. So at some point that becomes, you know, a bottleneck as well, because again, it is non-GMP starting material. So there's only so much resources you want to really put towards that from a low risk activity.
Okay, and that's actually really helpful just as far as that. I know at times it just seems like we're always being audited. So, which is why we're here today. All right, Sean, back to you, sir.
All right, Diane, my next question is for you. With the number of audits for commercial and research products, how has this impacted staffing to continue to try and collect and process products?
Anytime that we have an audit, it definitely, you know, is a lot of work, mostly on my end, but I do need to have the help of, you know, nurse managers, apheresis, the stem cell processing lab. And so it's taking time away from their patient care duties so they can help me, you know, pull records or, you know, answer this question, whether it's the audit prep or the actual day of itself.
Yeah, and it's really difficult when it's all the time back to back all year long.
Yes, with just a few like differences in date ranges, really, is what a lot of it was.
Yeah, I understand. This question is for both Nick and Diane. How does our service enhance the overall quality of the audit process compared to previous methods? And I'll let Nick go first.
I mean, I think we sort of covered this already, but again, I think it's on par with what you know, J&J's expectation is, and how we do our audits. So it was no different. So from that perspective, I think it was spot on.
Okay, thank you.
I was really impressed with the expertise of the auditors we had. They truly seemed to, you know, they were experts in the field. And it was nice because they came in with a variety of perspectives. Occasionally we've had, you know, outside agencies come in and they are used to seeing things the way they do it at their facility, and anything they see different must be wrong. And that was not anything that we encountered here. You know, they have seen things, you know, requirements met in a variety of ways. They were used to seeing, you know, something new or confirming something that they had already seen. So really the expertise was fantastic.
That's great to hear. Thank you. Turn it back to Kim.
Hey, Diane, just another question for you is, as you talked about, you know, people needing to be pulled from staffing. So how do you think that this service could actually help reduce some of that workload for your internal audit teams?
Ideally, you only have to do it once. You know, you're looking at pulling equipment records and staff training and competency and facility cleaning and maintenance. And, you know, it can save a lot of time with only having to do things once and not 4 times over the same time, you know, in the same year.
And that's even outside of having accreditation as well as, you know, regulatory bodies actually coming in.
Yes, this is just for industry and registry.
Yeah.
Hey, everyone. That was a great discussion. I think we've learned a lot already. We probably could keep listening for the remainder of the hour, but let's try to get some of the questions from the audience answered. So I will read the question and then direct it to the presenters. And again, if any questions do not get answered, we do plan on collating all of the questions and the answers and providing an FAQ document to all the email or the audience in here, and then email it out to you also. So first question. Would our center be able to upload our audit results to the audit library ourselves? Liz, would you like to take that one?
I'm trying to think if we've considered that. So is it an audit that's been performed by someone else? That's what I would ask. If it's an audit that's been performed by someone else, I don't know. Right now, we don't have a policy that would allow for that. I think the intent of the audit library is an audit that we go out and perform, because then we know that everything's been covered. We know all the regulations have been addressed. So at this point, I would say, I don't know. And I think that, we would really have to have further discussion about that.
Yeah, because we have a lot of guardrails that we're putting in place also
Exactly.
to protect our clients
Yeah.
and the sites. So that would be something we'd have to consider, but it is an interesting idea. So thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, the next question. In the case of product or protocol specific audits, what are your thoughts on best utilizing the assessments for different clients? Liz, do you want to take that one again?
So I can just tell you what I've learned is that what some manufacturers feel are unique to their product or protocol is really not unique at all. Like, there are other manufacturers that want to assess for the same thing, which is why we're trying to design these assessments to where we do an end-to-end. So say a manufacturer is really just interested in the collection part. That's really all they audit for. We're still going to go in and do a full assessment, meaning through the collection, through the processing, through any storage or cryopreservation, so that we have that information in the audit report, so that if a manufacturer would need to have that information, we can still leverage that same report. Since we're on site, we're going to look at those things anyway, just to make it a more comprehensive report. So hopefully that answered the question.
Okay, great. Next question is, can we get these links sent to our emails or other means? I can go ahead and answer that for time's sake. Yes, we will include that in the email when we send the FAQ document, so that you have all of that. But again, everything is on our FAAS Consulting website. So if you just search for FAAS Consulting, you'll find the website, and then a lot of information on that. But we will include that in the email. Next question, do you have a screenshot or an example of how a typical assessment looks like? I assume that means the report, Liz.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very transparent, so I'd be happy to share what the report format looks like to anyone who wants to see it. So yeah, if you just want to email me or that FAAS Consulting website, just let me know and we'll be happy to share that.
Okay. Okay, the next question is, what manufacturers have already qualified the FACT Audit and Assessment Solutions process? I can go ahead and answer that. These qualifications are under non-disclosure agreements, so we cannot actually specify which companies. I can say just very recently, we've had 2 qualify us, and we also in last year and the year before did have a couple companies qualify us as they were starting to understand that the solution was becoming available. So we're very used to it, and we're prepared for it. So that's definitely nothing that you would hit a roadblock with us. We will invite you with open doors to qualify us. Okay. Next question. Is the audit checklist or an assessment going to be a comprehensive form, including the requirements of FDA, FACT, and the client? Liz?
So the checklist, if a client, and we've had we've had a couple also want us to kind of look at some fact, requirements, even though we're really there to do a 1271, audit. So yeah, whatever the client requirements are, we can incorporate those into the checklist. It's actually, so the recent audit that we did, the manufacturer had a whole bunch of like client-specific stuff that they wanted, and in our checklist, those were already incorporated. So I think the checklist is extremely comprehensive and really covers a lot of stuff, but yeah, whatever the client would like us to assess, we're happy to incorporate that into the checklist.
Okay. The next questions are kind of similar. How much do these services cost? And then what is the average cost of your consulting services for a FACT accredited program? Liz?
You to answer that?
Yes.
Okay. So, so the cost is based, I knew we were going to get a price question, because if it was me and I sat through an hour presentation, I would want to know how much something's going to cost me. So it does, it does depend on like the geographic location and, what you want us to do. But based on the pilots and other audits we've done, a full comprehensive assessment when we go on site and provide all of the deliverables, the finished audit report, the audit, the observation response plan starts at $8,500. And then if you just want to leverage the report, just purchase the report, that starts at $6,500. So it's essentially the audit effort just minus the expenses.
Okay.
Hopefully that answered your question.
Okay. The next question is, how long is the audit report good for? So Liz, I'm going to give this one to you again.
I have to answer all the questions. So we've talked about having the audit report good for 3 years, although I do know that some, like the HTA, which is over in the UK, they actually require like a surveillance every 2 years. So right now, I think we're at 3 years, but we can reassess that based on, what the client needs, like what regulations we're assessing to, essentially. So if we have to assess to like HTA or other out of the US regulations, then that audit report would expire based on what those regulations require.
Okay. I'll take this next one for you, Liz, to give a break. Many of the big pharma companies already have their own quality team. Are you going after smaller companies? How many companies are you anticipating joining the FACT audit assessment solution process? So I guess there's kind of multiple answers to that. As far as what size of company we're going for, we can accommodate any size. From small to large. I can say our pilot assessment project encompassed varying size of companies, varying phases of research, and it worked for all of them. So I'm happy to report on that. I'm sure the companies can appreciate the question about, what if they have an established team? Because those teams, from what our market research is showing, is we have been told they're very, very busy. So we are certainly not looking to replace anybody, but rather supplement, because as the need for more sites comes about, the audit workload is going to be extremely difficult to keep up with, and we're hoping to bring some of that efficiency. How many companies we're anticipating to join? We're hoping many companies do, because as Nick was saying, that's what's going to bring the most benefit to the industry, is if multiple companies buy on, multiple companies utilize the reports in the report library, and the sites have a familiar auditor coming every time versus a different audit and a different process and a different approach every single time. So we are anticipating lots of clients, and we can accommodate any size. And the first step is to just submit a needs assessment, have that no cost meeting with the FACT consulting team to see what it is that you need, and we're planning on accommodating everyone's needs. Okay, next question is for Diane. Has Diane had any additional manufacturers since this audit accept the audit results?
Unfortunately, all of my audits tend to be grouped together within the same year. So far in 2024, I haven't had a need.
And I'm sure in a month or two, you'll start to get the request.
Yeah,
But that's a really good question that, you know, we already do have sites that we have done audits on that have reports. So we're already building that library. Okay, Liz, can you give the audience a description of how long this process takes from start to finish?
So I'm gonna defer that question to Sean.
That timeline would differ a little bit depending on the site and the manufacturer's needs. We tend to only want to spend one day actually on site, so I would say anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks to give the site time to compile all their documents, send things over to us, answer any questions. It's not always going to be an exact timeline for each site, but within that range would be reasonable for most of our assessments.
Okay. Next question. And Kim, I think I'm going to give this one to you. As a fact inspector for site accreditation, how different will it be for the inspectors when performing a site inspection with this independent audit activity occurring?
So for the inspectors themselves, I mean, we still fall under fact, and FAAS falls under fact consulting. So for these that are going with for the companies will be our fact auditors, which is different than our fact inspectors. As inspectors, we follow the fact standards and that edition that we're currently under. So there'll be some overlap, I think, for the fact auditors if we're incorporating anything of the fact standards into that need from the company. But for the fact inspectors, it will remain the same as we've all been trained.
Great answer, thank you. Okay, the next question is the service purchased by the third-party manufacturer or by the site seeking qualification? Liz, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so the client, which in most cases would be the manufacturer, is the one that would pay for the service.
Yes, we have had this question before, and there's nothing prohibiting a site from wanting to request an audit to have a report in the library. You know, if they're trying to get ahead of the game and they want to report in there and not wait until a company reaches out to them. So that's certainly a possibility. But as far as when there is an actual manufacturer wanting to qualify a site, typically that would be the manufacturer paying that. But it is an option if you want to seek that one. Okay, well, I'm happy. Oh, we've just got we'll do one more question. So can we ask our manufacturers to consider the option of using FAAS Consulting's audit and assessment solution?
Yes,
And
please.
yes.
I will say yes, please, too.
Yes, absolutely. We do find that the sites are a huge player in helping spread awareness. And for example, on the accreditation side, the manufacturer cell accreditation really was promoted by the sites and helped companies become aware that that was an option. And so please do share this information with your industry colleagues about the audit and assessment services. And then if they have any questions for you that you can't answer, please do refer them to us. We'll be happy to help.
Hey,
Okay.
Kara, as we're at the top of the hour, can I ask one last question of everybody? Is that okay?
Go for it.
So for all of our speakers and our other hosts, last question. Are there any final thoughts or anything else that you want the audience to actually be aware of about either the pilot assessment or fact auditing and assessment services? So Diane, any last words of wisdom?
Just thorough, easy. As far as the communication styles, you know, inspectors were extremely knowledgeable. So just a high quality audit, you know, it yielded a lot of useful results for us, as well as confirmation that we're doing things right.
Fabulous. Thank you, ma'am. Nick.
Sure. So again, I just want to say, because I'm from big pharma, Johnson & Johnson, and obviously straight right out of their CAR T program. So again, we've been talking about it for years from a strategy standpoint. Obviously now as the programs are taking off and other stem cell programs are coming online as well out of R&D, it just becomes unsustainable from a growth perspective, from an auditing perspective. You know, I'm already up to 9 people on my team for 9 auditors just for the North America region. There's another 4 or 5 in Latin America. So again, it becomes unsustainable. As we grow, we can't go to 15, 20, or 25. So strategically, we are going to be going the outsourcing route. It's more effective, it's more efficient for the site, and obviously it's significant cost savings for the company.
Good. Thank you, sir. Sean, anything you would like to say, sir?
I would like to just highlight once again that one of our biggest goals with this initiative is to make it a very pleasant and easy experience for both the manufacturer and the site, and long-term allow the sites to put the focus back on patient care, which is really why we're all in this business to begin with.
Agreed. Thank you, sir. Liz, final thoughts, ma'am.
Well, first, I just wanted to thank Diane and Nick, really for your kind words, because I think we just, we go into this with the mindset of we're all working together to provide more therapies to patients. And so it's just nice that, just the kind words, I really do appreciate that. And so I would say that, really that's the goal, is we're just trying to help contribute in whatever way we can to provide more therapies to patients. And we're ready to go. We're happy to help, and just reach out if you have any questions at all. We'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, ma'am. And Kara.
I'd just like to first say, I'm incredibly grateful to Diane, Nick, Liz, Sean, and you, Kim. This has been a fabulous project, even with the pilot assessment, very enjoyable. We appreciate your advice and your feedback. I also want to thank many of the other people in the field that were a part of building this. This is not something FAAS did in a silo. This is, the result of a lot of work from several companies, ASTCT, ISCT, Deloitte, ASFA, Standards Coordinating Body, CIBMTR and ICFA have been involved in a lot of conversations where we're all really working together. And so this is just one more result of the field working. And it's one final thing. It's been a pleasure incorporating industry into our circle of stakeholders and colleagues. And you really have demonstrated a big desire to reach more patients and to help them. So we appreciate everyone's teamwork on this.
Fabulous. So I think the main things are, we want to be able to provide more patients with more access to care. And so with that, we all need to work together and to work both as industry and healthcare institutions together hand in hand with our partners, including FAAS Consulting and others. And so I just want to say thank you to everybody for being here. Thank you to our audience and for all your fabulous questions. Please feel free to reach out with more. We are here to help and here to we're excited to see where this goes. So thank you all. And I hope everybody has a fabulous weekend.
Thank you,
Thank
Kim.
you.
Thank you for
Bye.
hosting.
Thank you.